These are the hood or bonnet hinges, and I'm noticing, other than we got a missing stud here, these studs are all, the nuts are bound tight, can't move. These, though, have been replaced with bolts and as many washers as is required to act as spacers. And in the process of doing that, that middle one is really bent. Let's see if we can. Seriously bent. And huge even in comparison to this size. So that somebody drilled and tapped that crooked as hell, and it's definitely not the way to go about things. Even that stud is a way different size. And I'm imagining that they're probably Whitworth, so my job of repairing them is going to be turn them into metric or imperial. But yeah, I want the smaller stud size. I want studs. I managed to do that with the front emblem. Studs were all frozen with rust. But fortunately in this particular instance, the 1032 tap was pretty darn close. Close enough that when I put it in a 1032 thread, I could actually use the old washers, which were still in effect. So I'm going to be going the same route with this one because it's got reasonable size threading. This one I'm going to be doing something different with because it's on an angle and it's large size threading. So that's what I'm going to be fixing today. Okay, this is the holes they've made as opposed to a 6-1 mil. Which is close to really close to the same size as the original Whitworth. But yeah, so I'm going to have to figure out, do some fancy machining and get something in place of that large hole to do it properly. Okay, now that I've got this piece set up and centered, I want to punch a channel in there and then do a dovetail, which is going to be interesting because I don't have a dovetail bit, but I do have a slitting saw, so we'll see how I can make that work. Then I can put in an 1/8 of an inch piece of steel that's dovetailed, set it in there, maybe some Loctite with it, that's already pre-tapped to 6x1 mil. Now normally for aluminum I'd be taking bigger bites, but this thing is not completely 45 degrees, so it could spit out if I'm too rough with it. And it was an eyeball for using this land as a reference for what's straight and what isn't. And centering, I just went off the 2 bolt holes, and this third one I got close to so I could see that, okay, I'm relatively center. Now the stock I'm going to use is about 3.5 mil. So I'm going to channel that hole down with an 8, that's an 8 mil? Yeah, 8 mil mill end, flat mill, and make it about 3.6 3.7, so it's a little lower than the surface. And if it pulls up to the surface, that's fine. But I don't want it sticking above surface, because then it's going to be balancing on the hood when it's closed, or when it's on there. There, 3.6. Now, the other option I could have had is to actually just TIG weld in aluminum, but I don't know if these are some kind of a magnesium alloy that would explode on me as soon as I started melting it. So I'm just playing it safe. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to get this on a 45-degree angle so I can hit that with a slitting saw. Going to be interesting. Yeah, I forgot I had this table. It's graduated for 50 degrees, but apparently I can only get 44.5 according to its tip scale. So we'll have to see what happens with that, I guess. I'm going to have to get everything centered up for straight line travel. Well, hopefully it'll work. We'll find out once I get it set up. Okay, I got it set up, I believe. I had to remove my handles because they would collide with the vise handle. So I'm strictly on the rotator here for moving it up and down. But, well, we'll see what happens. Okay, I gotta do a little more playing around with centering because it's not taking as much off this end as it is at that end, and it's traveling crooked, so it's not quite right. Okay. The land appears to be the same size now, so I guess we're okay. In all actuality, I probably should be drilling and tapping first, but we're going to go this route now that it's set up. Yeah, it looks like it worked out fairly even. Got pretty much the same sharp edge across. So, yeah, my eyeballs are still reasonably good as long as I got some glasses on. Reading glasses. I think that's visible. Cut the 45 groove in here. One pass up near the top and a couple of lower passes to dig it in flat. If it's not completely flat, I'll have to touch it with a file or something like that, or a Dremel, whatever I can get my hands on. But basically, we'll see how that works. I'm going to have to flip it over the other way once I finish this back end. And because it's a bit tapered, it skews up my settings in the vise too. So it's a bit awkward, but a little hard to see, but there's definitely a land there. Yeah, there's a couple of ridges there. I'm just going to attack it with a nice sharp wood file. That'll take care of aluminum. Get it flattened out. Now, because these things have no flat sides whatsoever, I'm unable to hold them in a vise while I'm trying to chisel away the angles, or the residue of the angles, so I did have to invest in a countersunk, or yep, the words are evading me, so that I can dovetail bit. That's what I was looking for. So that I can machine these things out. What I got for a dovetail bit was a 10 mil by 45 degree. Okay, here I've got one of the pieces of steel that I've done an angle on for the internal dovetail. It's Loctited in, and I got these bolts with the permanent washers on them. I still haven't figured out how the heck they do that, but anyway, I cut the head off of it, and Loctited that in place. And the nice thing about those big washers is they come in handy for holding the hood down later. And a couple of bolts, and Bob's your uncle. Anyway, I've got to build 3 more of these plates, and they'll be fixed. So that's the basis of doing it. I also had to grind that off so that it was flush, because it did stick out a bit. So I've got to build a bunch more of these little things. Only a little bit longer. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. Bye now.